What's up guys, I'm Paul and welcome to the channel. So WordPress is the world's most popular website builder, and according to the guys over at Kinsta, it powers 43% of the world's websites, which is an insane figure, especially when you look at some of its closest competition, the likes of Wix and Squarespace, that combined make up less than 3% of the world's websites. So it's undeniable that WordPress is the king of the website builders. And it's for this reason that lots of people will consider WordPress when it comes to building an e-commerce website. But there are quite a few options when it comes to WordPress e-commerce, and it can get a bit confusing trying to figure out which one you should go for. But I have gone through and tested all of the popular options out when it comes to WordPress e-commerce, and in this video I'm going to list what I think are the best options when it comes to WordPress e-commerce. Now this list isn't in any particular order, and there's not a best overall, so don't bother asking, because I don't think there is a best overall. I just think there's some options that are better than others, and this is a list of options that I think you should consider if you are planning on using WordPress for your e-commerce website. Now when it comes to these options that I'm going to list in this video, I will list a few pros and cons of each option, because none of them are perfect. They all have their good points and their bad points, and also if applicable I'll leave links in the card above to related videos that I've done on these options, and I'll also leave links in the description below to these videos, potential posts that I've written on the e-commerce gold website, and also any links to these platforms or options as well. Some of these may be affiliate links, which means if you do go through these links and you sign up to these options, I do get a small commission, which is massively helpful to me and the channel, and I do appreciate it if you go through those links. So with the introduction out of the way, let's jump into the list. So the first option is the king of WordPress e-commerce, and that is WooCommerce. And the reason why it's the king is because it's effectively the official e-commerce plugin for WordPress. Why is that, you ask? Well, the reason is a few years ago it was acquired by the company Automattic, and Automattic is the company that owns and operates the main WordPress CMS. So it's all owned by the same company, which is why it is now effectively the official WordPress e-commerce plugin. And one of the reasons why it's got so many installs as of recording this video, it says there's over 5 million active installs, but I reckon it's actually way higher than this in real terms, is the fact that it's completely free to use. And there is no plans in the future by the guys over at WordPress or WooCommerce to start charging for the core plugin, because they want to keep it free, because they want to keep it the most popular option. But what are some of the pros and cons when it comes to using WooCommerce? Well, the first pro I've already mentioned, and that is it's completely free to use. And this makes it so appealing to so many people, especially if you're trying to launch an e-commerce website on a shoestring budget. It can make it very appealing because free is always appealing. The second pro is because it's so popular, there's a massive online community around the plugin, and this can have many beneficial effects. The first one is there's a huge amount of additional plugins that can be used with WooCommerce. Secondly, there's lots of themes out there that have WooCommerce compatibility, and most theme developers now are actually building WooCommerce compatibility into any new themes they're creating, so it increases the appeal of those themes. And thirdly, there's a massive amount of resources available online. This can come in the form of tutorials or help guides, whether it's here on YouTube or individual blogs that are out there. There's a huge online community that provides resources that can be very, very helpful. And what can also be helpful about this is if you run into any issues with WooCommerce, you can't figure out how to do something yourself, a quick Google search or a quick YouTube search will generally provide the answer for you. So this huge community can be very beneficial and very helpful when you're building your e-commerce website using WooCommerce. And the final pro for this video is it can be used for so many different types of e-commerce websites. It's an incredibly versatile plugin, and the community that's around it has seen this versatility and realized that you can use WooCommerce for so many different types of e-commerce websites. You can use it for things like traditional B2C e-commerce websites selling physical or digital products. You can use it for B2B websites, which is business to business. You can also use it for things like subscription websites, membership websites, even up to multi-vendor marketplaces. It's an incredibly flexible and versatile plugin that can be used as a base for so many different types of e-commerce websites. So the cons of WooCommerce. Well, the first one is something I never see people mention is with WooCommerce, it's down to you as the website owner to make sure your checkout is secured. And the reason for this is with WooCommerce, all of your checkout pages are hosted on your website servers. And if you don't secure your checkout properly, which as a minimum, you're going to need an SSL certificate, which you should have on your e-commerce website anyway. But secondly, you may run into some PCI compliance issues depending on the payment provider that you're using, because some payment providers may require a PCI compliance scan to be run on your website. And if you're running your WordPress site on normal shared hosting, there's a good chance it's probably going to fail this PCI scan because most shared hosting isn't PCI compliant. And in order to become PCI compliant, you're going to have to move to PCI compliant web hosting. That was a lot of PCI compliance. But one of the main issues with this is PCI compliant web hosting is generally quite a bit more expensive than standard shared hosting, because normal hosting for a WordPress site will generally cost somewhere between $5 and $10 a month. But PCI compliant hosting, because it requires much more in terms of security server side, is generally going to cost from around about $30 a month. So this is something that you're going to need to discuss with your payment gateway provider and ask them what you need to do in order for your website to become PCI compliant, because it says some of them will require scans of your website, but this does depend on the payment provider you're using. So speak to them first before you commit to building your website, because it can save you a lot of headaches knowing what you need to do and what's required before you actually go and set up your site and then find out you need to go in and retroactively make security updates and things like that. So that is one of the main cons of WooCommerce, in my opinion, is the fact that all of the checkout pages are hosted on your website servers. So the second con of WooCommerce is the core plugin is very, very limited when it comes to features. In fact, it's the most basic option when it comes to features of all the ones that I'm going to mention in this list. And what leads on from this is you're going to need a lot of additional plugins in order to get the features and functionality you need for your e-commerce website. And this can lead to some problems further down the line. The first one is the more plugins you have on your WordPress site, the more bloat you have on your site, and it can become more difficult to make your site perform well. This is because you'll generally have plugins related to the actual WordPress. On my website, I had about 10 plugins just for WordPress. Then I had WooCommerce, and I had about another 10 plugins just related to WooCommerce. And all these plugins do add bloat and can slow your site down. But where it can become a real headache is when it comes to updates, because you've got all these different plugins and trying to keep them updated and your site working properly can be a real headache. Because generally what happens is there'll be a core update to the main WordPress CMS, then you have all of your main plugins related to WordPress will update, then WooCommerce will update, then you'll have all your WooCommerce related plugins will update after WooCommerce has updated. It's a lot of updates there. And what this can lead to is plugin conflicts. Plugins can break your site. You can have conflicts with your theme. It can just be a real headache when it comes to general updates and maintenance using WooCommerce. And what this can result in is your site not being that reliable, because things can break. And what you need to do is you need to have a good system in place in order to manage updates effectively. So you're going to need to have a staging site, and you're going to need to run through all these updates on your staging site, make sure everything's working properly before you roll out these updates on your main production website. And the final con for this video is it can be expensive. Even though the core plugin is free to use and there's lots of free options when it comes to plugins that are available, if you need specific functionality, you may need to go for premium plugins. Even things like payment gateways, many times you will require a premium option for this plugin, and they're going to cost around about $79 a year. Plus there's other plugins that can run into hundreds of dollars a year. Plus if you need specific functionality from your theme to work with WooCommerce, you may need to have the premium option of that theme. If you factor that in with also if you need PCI compliant hosting, it means your WordPress website or your WooCommerce website can be very, very expensive on a yearly basis. And this is something you need to figure out before you actually get started with WooCommerce. Figure out exactly what you need and see what options are out there when it comes to plugins that are available. So the second option when it comes to WordPress e-commerce is a plugin called WP EasyCart. And this is a relative unknown in the world of WordPress e-commerce, but something that I was pleasantly surprised by when I tested it out earlier this year. And as of recording this video, it's only got 6,000 active installs, but it is a feature-rich plugin and definitely something that you should consider if you're planning on using WordPress for e-commerce. Now, when it comes to pricing, they do offer a completely free plugin that can be downloaded from the WordPress plugin library. But on the free plugin, you will pay a 2% transaction fee on all payments that you receive, which is something you do need to be aware of. But these transaction fees are wiped out if you go for one of the premium options, which are really reasonably priced at $69 a year and $99 a year, which is really reasonably priced. But what are the pros and cons of WP EasyCart? Well, the first pro is you just need the one plugin. This is because it's all developed in-house. It's not like with WooCommerce where you're dealing with different developers for different plugins. Everything is done in-house by the team at WP EasyCart. And this just makes life so much easier because it removes all the maintenance issues that you can have with having multiple different plugins with just having that one. And also it means that conflicts within the plugin are less likely to happen because everything's done in-house. And this brings me on to the features, because it is a feature-rich plugin, as I've already mentioned, and this comes on the free plugin as well. Even the free one is more than enough to build a traditional B2C e-commerce website. But if you do need to upgrade, it's really reasonably priced to upgrade to one of the premium packages, which are $69 a month and $99 a month, as I've already mentioned. And for most people, they're probably just going to need the $69 a month option. And this is really reasonably priced, especially when you compare it to something like WooCommerce, where a single payment gateway plugin from WooCommerce will cost you $79 a year, and you get way more features for your money with WP EasyCart. And the final pro for this video is WP EasyCart works with pretty much every single WordPress theme that's out there. You don't need a specific theme that has WP EasyCart like integration or compatibility. It'll work with pretty much every single WordPress theme out there, which can be really useful, especially if you find a theme that you like and you just want to add e-commerce to it. You can do that with WP EasyCart. So what are the pros for WP EasyCart? Well, the first one is the same as the first con with WooCommerce, and that is because the checkout pages are hosted on your website servers. So things like PCI compliance may be an issue depending on the payment gateway that you're using. So as with WooCommerce, check with the payment gateway provider you're going to use, see what requirements they have for PCI compliance, and see what you need to do to your website in order to become PCI compliant. So the second con is the transaction fee, because if you're using the free plugin, you will be paying 2% of all of your sales to the team at WP EasyCart. But if you do want to get rid of this transaction fee, you can just upgrade to the $69 a month package and you won't pay any transaction fees at all. So you'll probably have to figure it out yourself where the tipping point is from paying the transaction fee to moving on to paying $69 a year for the premium plugin. You have to figure that one out yourself, as I say. Con number 3 is it does have a steeper learning curve than WooCommerce, because WooCommerce is a pretty easy plugin to use, whereas WP EasyCart is a bit more challenging because there's lots of options available within the plugin. And on screen now, I'll show you some of the options that are available on the Add New Product screen. And as you can see, there's lots of options you need to work through. Now, the guys at WP EasyCart have said they are looking at making the plugin easier to use, removing some of the options or combining some of the options so it's just easier for the end user. But currently it does have a much steeper learning curve than you would have with WooCommerce, and it takes some time to learn exactly how the plugin works. And following on from that one is currently it doesn't have the greatest integration with the Gutenberg page builder. From what I've tested out, it doesn't work all that well, and there's not many specific blocks for WP EasyCart. But once again, the team at WP EasyCart have told me they are looking to improve this integration with the Gutenberg page builder, which would be a definite plus to the plugin because the other options on this list do work really well with the new Gutenberg page builder. So the third option on this list is a very different option to the first two options that we mentioned, and that is Ecwid. This is because Ecwid is a fully hosted e-commerce platform that you can integrate with your self-hosted WordPress site. And this means it offers a very unique proposition when it comes to WordPress e-commerce. But I'll cover more of that when I go through the pros and cons. But how much does Ecwid cost? Well, they do have a completely free plan. And this allows you to set up to 10 products, and you do get limited features on the platform. But it's a great way to kind of trial the platform without having to actually take out a trial. But if you want access to all the features, you are going to have to go onto a paid option, and they are the venture package at $15 a month, the business package at $35 a month, or the unlimited package at $99 a month. Now, this is if you pay monthly. If you pay annually, you get the equivalent of 2 months free, which is quite a good saving. And the plugin that you actually use on WordPress is completely free to use as well. So that's Ecwid, but what are the pros and cons? So the first pro with Ecwid is you get a fully secure PCI compliant checkout, which is absolutely amazing. And this is because of the way Ecwid works. Because all of the Ecwid pages, it doesn't matter whether it's your product page or your checkout page, is actually hosted on Ecwid servers. It's not hosted directly on your WordPress site. It just kind of imports it into your WordPress site. So for the customer, it looks like it's a seamless integration, but actually it's hosted on 2 different servers. And because everything's hosted on Ecwid servers in relation to your e-commerce side, it means it's a much secure process for your customers because they're using Ecwid's PCI compliant servers. So the whole checkout is PCI compliant, which can make life so much easier if you do need to be PCI compliant, if you need to go through scans and things like that, because your website should pass because all of the checkout pages are hosted on PCI compliant servers. And it means you can host the rest of your WordPress site on normal shared hosting if you wish. So this is one of the big advantages, in my opinion, for Ecwid, is the fact that you have a completely secure checkout process, and also the fact that everything is hosted on Ecwid servers. So things like your product images, etc., are all hosted on Ecwid, so it doesn't actually bog down your site with all of that information and data, which is very good in my opinion. The second pro is very similar to WP EasyCart in the fact that you only need one plugin. Because all of the features are included with the plugin, you just need that one plugin and it just integrates with your WordPress site. No need for multiple plugins, which can just make maintenance so much easier for your site going forward. And the third pro is the amount of features you get available. Now, these are very limited on the free package and they are somewhat limited on the venture package, but when you go onto the business or unlimited package, you get access to pretty much all the features that are available on Ecwid. And it is a very feature-rich platform, and it's also very easy to use. This is one of the main pros of Ecwid, in my opinion, is it's super easy to use. Even people who aren't experienced with building websites or building e-commerce websites will soon get up to speed with Ecwid. And I will also leave a link to my tutorial, because I've done a full tutorial on getting set up with Ecwid, which may be helpful if you consider this option. But it is very easy to use and it's very easy to pick up, and also the integration with WordPress is very, very good. And because Ecwid is a fully hosted e-commerce platform, if you're on one of the paid packages, you do get access to their support. Now, it does depend on the package you're on as to the level of support you actually get. But if you're on, say, the business or the venture package, you get live chat support, you also get phone support, and you also get email support as well. Which means should you run into any issues with the e-commerce aspects of your website, you can just drop the team at Ecwid a message and they'll get back to you and look at sorting out that issue. And sometimes just having that support available there can make life so much easier, because you don't actually get that with things like WooCommerce, which you're kind of on your own. And the final pro for Ecwid for this video is that you get multi-channel selling included with the plugin. You don't need additional plugins or additional apps to do this. It's built into the way Ecwid works. So not only can you sell via your website, but you can also sell via things like Facebook and Instagram. And depending on where you are in the world, you can also integrate with things like Amazon and eBay. So you can manage everything from a single dashboard, but have multiple sales channels going out there to try and generate you more money for your business. So what are some of the cons with Ecwid? Well, the main one that a lot of people mention is that Ecwid can be the more expensive option, especially if you want access to all the features. Because if you want this, you're going to need to be on the business package, or you're going to need to be on the unlimited package. And as these are $35 a month or $99 a month, it means it can be a more expensive option. But you do get a discount, as I say, if you pay annually. But when compared to some of the other options on this list, it can make it a more expensive option. And this can become even more expensive if you need to use any of the apps that are available with Ecwid. Because they have their own app store where you can buy apps that add additional functionality and things like that, most of these do come with an additional cost, which will be charged on a monthly basis. And this can make Ecwid an even more expensive option should you need any of these features. But it's going to be a balancing act. Is it more expensive, but you get all the benefits of a fully hosted checkout, you get things like support, and also can you use this to make more money with multi-channel selling? That's something that you need to figure out yourself, but it can work out as a more expensive option than other ones on this list. So the final option on this list isn't actually a WordPress plugin. Now don't have a go at me just yet, hear me out. It's using Shopify, and specifically Shopify Lite and the Shopify buy button, and copying the code from Shopify and pasting it into your WordPress site. And this does add full e-commerce functionality to your WordPress site. And this can be a great option, in my opinion, for stores that only want to sell a few products. If you've got a small product range, it can be a very good option. If you're looking to sell hundreds of products, have hundreds of product listings, then the other options I've just mentioned are probably going to be better. But for small scale e-commerce stores, using Shopify and the Shopify buy button can be a great option. And when it comes to Shopify Lite, it's cheap. It costs $9 a month. Now you will have to pay a 2% transaction fee on any sale you take, but it still works out as a very cost-effective option. So what are the pros and cons of using the Shopify buy button? So the first one is you get access to a good selection of features. Now you're not going to get access to all the features that are available with Shopify, because some of those are reserved for the online stores built using Shopify, but you still do get access to a lot of features when it comes to products, collections, and you also get a fully secure checkout as well, because very much like Ecwid, all of the checkout pages are hosted on Shopify servers. They're not hosted on your website servers. So this means when it comes to secure checkout, it's much more secure using Shopify. And another thing when it comes to security, and this can be a big plus for a lot of people, is there's no personal information actually stored on your WordPress site, because everything's stored on your Shopify dashboard, or your order information, everything is stored on Shopify. Nothing is stored on your WordPress site. So should your WordPress site get hacked, they're not going to get any of your customers' information. And this can be a big benefit for a lot of people. So the final pro for this video is you can also use Shopify's App Store as well, so you can add additional functionality to your Shopify buy button. Now, not all the apps are going to be available, because some of them are only available for online stores built using Shopify, but there are other ones related to products, so things like digital products and things like that, that you can install and use with the Shopify buy button. Now, some of these may have monthly costs attached to them, but it does give you a lot more flexibility when it comes to actually using Shopify with your WordPress site. So what are some of the cons of using Shopify with WordPress? Well, the first one is something I've already mentioned, which is the transaction fee. You pay 2% transaction fee on all the payments you receive, but this is only if you receive the payments using a third-party payment gateway. If you use Shopify Payments, which is Shopify's main payment gateway, you won't pay these fees, but if you're using something like PayPal, you will pay this 2% transaction fee, something you do need to be aware of. So the second con is it is quite limited in terms of integration. Because you're just basically copying and pasting code from Shopify into your WordPress site, it is quite limited in terms of integration. It's not like with Ecwid, where it brings the whole store over. With Shopify, it only brings over certain elements. And one of the main things that you'll find is missing is customers can't set up an account using Shopify on your site. It's just the way it works with Shopify Lite, so they can't set up customer accounts, which can be somewhat of a drawback, especially if you want to start retargeting customers in the future. But if you're just having customers come in and they're only going to be making one-time transactions, this isn't going to make much of a difference to you. So the final Shopify con is it can take some time to actually get this up and running properly, because you need to create your product in Shopify, you then need to create the buy button and then copy and paste that code into your WordPress site. And you have to do this for each individual product that you want to list on your WordPress site. So it can take a bit of time to get things set up properly. But I have done a full tutorial that shows you exactly how to do this, and I'll leave that in the card and also in the description below, so go and check that one out. So that's Shopify. Even though it's not a fully fledged solution like, say, Ecwid would be, it still can be a great option for small e-commerce stores, especially if you've only got a few products and you want things to be as simple and easy as possible. Shopify Lite can be a great option. So those are the 4 options that I think are worth considering when it comes to adding e-commerce to a WordPress site. Now, I know there's lots of other options out there, but I tried a lot of them and they just didn't work all that well, or they were very expensive for what they were. Whereas these 4 options are ones that I personally would consider if I was building a WordPress site and I wanted to use it for e-commerce. It would definitely be these 4 options that I would consider, and it would just be depending on the type of store that I'm actually building as to which one I would go with. So that is why I made this video and listed these 4 options, because they're the ones I would personally go for. So thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll leave another video here which might be of interest to you, and if you've enjoyed this video, a like would be absolutely awesome. Thank you so much for watching. Stay awesome, and I'll see you in the next one.